Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for joining us. So today we're starting the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam. And before we start, it's entitled Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Thought I would do a quick overview of the first 5 cantos. So, first 2 cantos are considered to be the Lord's lotus feet, and they form the prelude to the rest of the scripture by introducing us to its key philosophical concepts and the prominent characters as well. So these cantos also establish Bhakti Yoga as the topmost spiritual path, almost immediately actually. So from Canto 1, Chapter 1, straight away. And Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fountainhead of all incarnations. So in these 2 cantos, there are descriptions of many wonderful prayers by devotees. Can anybody tell me in Canto 1 and 2, or even 1, a prayer, devotees' prayers that they recall? They don't have to recall the prayers, just the name of the devotee. Anybody remember any names? Yes, Rianj.
Kunti Maharani Prabhuji.
Fantastic. Hey, very good boy. Very good boy. Anybody else?
Bhishma Pitama.
Bhishma. Good. Good. That's really good. Well done. And the Lord's reciprocation with them, how he deals with them, treats them. The birth of Parikshit Maharaj it happens in the first canto, and his activities of chastising Kali. And we also have the history of the Bhagavatam in these cantos, the circumstances in which this scripture made its appearance through the mercy of Narad Muni and Vyasdev. The process of creation, that's quite covered in some detail. And then, of course, the universal form, the Virat-rup, the Chatusloki from which the whole Bhagavatam manifests is there. And this is always worth remembering. 2nd canto, 9th chapter, text 31 onwards for 5 verses, because the first one is introduction. And of course, the definition of the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam. These 10 topics make a Purana. So that's also defined here in the cantos 1 and 2. 3 and 4 correspond to the Lord's thighs and predominantly discuss the topics of the primary and secondary creation, right? The Sarga and Visarga. And that's done through the conversation of Vidur and Maitreya. The 3rd canto gives many, many different types of topics, as well as the creation, the Visarga by Brahma and his sons, talks about time and the embryology, family life, Sankhya. Who talked about Sankhya in the 3rd canto? Anybody? Sankhya Yoga?
Hare Krishna, is it Sankaracharya?
No, not in the Bhagavatam.
Devahuti Kardama Muni.
Who was their son?
Kapil Dev Prabhuji.
Yeah, that's it. Well done, Kapil Dev. And of course, spiritual world is described, material world is hell is described in little bit, of course. And then in the 5th canto, we saw a lot of it. And then we go specifically, 3rd canto, there are prominent pastimes of Varaha, then descriptions of Vaikuntha and Lord Vishnu, which we went through. The interaction of Kashyap and Aditi. Who came from them? Anybody remember? Kashyap and Aditi. Who appeared from?
Yeah, the Hiranyakashipu and his brother.
Yes.
Hiranyaksha.
Well done. Very good. And then that was contrasted with Kardam Muni and Devahuti, from whom Kapil Dev came. And his teachings are prominent in the Bhagavad, 3rd canto. And the 4th canto, Maitrishi talks about the family lineage of Swambhu Manu, not Mani. He had 3 daughters and 2 sons. Then there was a lot of discussion about Uttampad. Who was his famous son?
Dhruva.
Dhruva.
Yes, good, very good. So there are many admirable persons. Lord Shiva, Suniti. Who's Suniti?
Mother of Dhruva.
Yeah, Dhruva, King Anga. Whose son was King Anga? Little tough question.
Venu.
Yes,
King Venu.
very good, very good. Who got that first?
Me.
Nani Ban.
Wow. Good, Nani.
Now she's taking the lead, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Prithu
No,
Maharaj.
that proves that you are following Nani Ban. You are reading,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm reading, but it's reading for the first time. Very, very hard to remember all this. That's
Oh, yeah.
But I'm reading. There's no doubt about it.
Even I am reading for the first time, Nani Ban. But
Are
we got
you?
a little one who is faster than everyone.
That's right. So Prithu, another incredible character in the Pachetas. We're going to hear a lot more about the Pachetas again. There are examples of extraordinary examples of devotional service. These are examples. We can learn from the unfavorable attitudes in devotional service, from the mistakes of Daksha. And we're going to see Daksha again in the 5th canto, but in a different body. Surichi, the stepmother of Dhruv, Vena, who was the son of King Anga. Indra, we saw Indra's attitude. And then Prachina Bharhi, who was preached to by who? Who preached to him?
Narad Muni.
Narada
and
Muni.
About this, the person, what's his name? Puranjana.
Yes, good.
I
And
made that
there was,
story, Puranjana.
yeah, the positive transformations that took place because of the intervention of devotees, that adds to the glory of bhakti. So furthermore, prayers of pure devotees in this canto disclose the foremost of aspiration of the devotees to hear Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. That's always very, very key. And by rejecting heavenly enjoyments, impersonal liberation, which is what is the prayer for the Karmi Yogi and the Jnani Yogi, establishes superiority of Bhakti Yoga. And then we saw many examples of kings who had so much wealth and prestige. They left everything behind, retired in an exemplary way at the right time for spiritual advancement. So it's not that we work until the day we die. No, we have to think about the timing of our life, that we prepare ourselves. Then there's the glorious example of Anasuya, Sati, Suniti, Archi, Vairabhi, who are fully devoted to their husbands, and they achieved perfection as well. Then we just survived the 5th canto. It corresponds to the lotus navel of the Lord. And here Sukadeva Goswami continues to talk about the secondary creation, he first described the younger son, Uttampad, because of Dhruv. Now he's describing Priyavrat. And the first 15 chapters were dedicated to wonderful pastimes of Priyavrat and his dynasty. And the later half, the second half of the canto, talked about the structure of the universe, which we went through, and describes, the first 15 chapters describes about how can an advanced devotee fall from his spiritual practice and engage in material life again. And there was 2 examples. Priyavrat himself, he didn't want to, but he was made to take on the task of running the universe or ruling earth. And then there was King Bharat, and we know the pastimes of King Bharat. Extraordinary pastimes given in the Bhagavatam. Priyavrat's dynasty exemplified the spirit of sacrificing one's personal desire to be obedient to the order of superior. So he didn't want to take on the task of ruling the earth, but he submitted to Lord Brahma, who asked him. And then he divided Bhumandal into 7 islands, 7 oceans, which we touched on when we were looking at the second half of the 5th canto. His son Agnidhara, whose son was Nabi, who was the son of Nabi and Meru?
Rishabdev.
Good. Rishabdev appeared. How many sons did he have?
100.
100.
Who was the eldest?
Bharata.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. And we know what happened to Bharat. I won't go into that because we've covered that in some detail. I think everybody will remember this wonderful pastime. Then there was the geography of the universe, hearing about the 7 islands, the Dvipas created by the chariot wheels of Priyavrat. Parikshit inquired about their dimensions and characteristics. So then Sukadeva explains about Bhumandal, beginning with Jambudweep, and then the other 6 islands. 6, and then they're split into, Jambudweep is split into 9 different varshas. And we're in Bharatvarsh, and today is Republic Day. So traditionally, Guru Maharaj liked to celebrate Bharat's Republic Day and Independence Day, because Bharat is a place where all this wonderful religious tradition, Sanatana Dharma, has come from. So we should honor that land where the religious tradition comes from.
Beloved Srila Prabhupada came from.
And Prabhupada came from. I mean, that wonderful video that's been circulating today. So just give an idea of to devotees, how far have we actually got? I know we got to the 5th canto, but we've done about 119 chapters, which is out of 335. So we were just over 1/3 of the way through. So not too bad.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good we've survived. And roughly 4,000 verses. So that's about a quarter. And if you say Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses, so this is quite a significant chunk of verses that we've done. Okay, so quick overview of the 6th canto. Some really amazing pastimes take place in this canto. So they're hearing about these 28 hells. Parikshit Maharaj inquired. He's very compassionate. He said, how can people be saved from the hell? And then Sukadeva Goswami, we'll just see that in a minute. He gives this pastime of Ajamel, fantastic pastime. And then again, we dive into the secondary creation and how did Parikshit Maharaj was very inquisitive about how did the demigods come about and the demons. Give more details, he said. So then Parikshit Maharaj gives more details about the second coming of Daksha and how he was the creator of so many different types of progeny. So we won't go into that detail because we will see that as we're going through in the next few couple of weeks, I think it'll take. And we also got a wonderful pastime of Vishwarup, extraordinary pastime of Vishwarup. And Vishwarup, Vrittasura. Vishwarup was the conduit, why it happened. But Vrittasura came as a demon, but actually was a devotee. An extraordinary pastime. And that came because of Chitraketu, which I would say is one of the most important pastimes for us to understand in the Bhagavatam. We might spend a little bit more time on Chitraketu just to really drive it home what this pastime means for us. It's really one of the most amazing pastimes. And then in the later chapters, Sukadeva Goswami talks about the descendants of Daksha, Daksha's daughters, the Maruts, very interesting characters. And yes, Bhagavatam, 6th canto is effectively how the Lord protects through his holy name the devotees, despite their faults. So, chapter 1, let's have a look. We're just continuing with the conversation from Canto 5, to 6 of Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So this is 15th verse of the first chapter.
Kechit kavalya bhaktaya Vasudeva parayana Agham tunvanti kasyana Viharam iva bhaskaraha.
Only a rare person who has adopted complete and devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays.
Excellent. So we'll see how this verse comes into play. So this chapter is called The History of the Life of Ajamil, Deliverance from Hell. To enthuse Sukadev Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit, he reviews the knowledge he has received from Sukadev Goswami. So this is really amazing because the student, he's loving it so much. Parikshit Maharaj is really into it. And he's then saying to Sukadev Goswami, you've explained the Nivritti Marg, path of liberation. You've explained, there should be Privritti Marg, the elevation to heavenly planets. You've explained about the first Manvantara, Swayambhu, Manu. And you've talked about Uttampad, you've talked about Priyavat in the 5th canto, about hellish life. You talk about Vedic cosmology. Now, especially when he's saying to Parikshit Maharaj, that Sukadev Goswami, that I'm really concerned, how can human beings be saved from entering hell, even those who are sinful? So he's very compassionate by nature, because the Pandavas were compassionate. So he's got that from his father and mother. In order to test the proficiency of his disciple, his pupil, Sukadev Goswami first responds by explaining the path of atonement according to Manu Samhita and the Dharma Shastras. So the question is, how can somebody become purified and atone for their sins? And Sukadev Goswami says, the sinful person before dying must atone for his sins committed by the mind, words, and actions. And he gives a couple of examples, just like a doctor treats a disease according to its gravity. So the more grave the sin, the more atonement required. So he's testing the disciple. And Parikshit Maharaj, he responds. He rejects this path of karma kanda. This is explained as karma kanda because you do bad karma and you try to do pious karma to counteract it. So it's called karma kanda. Since he has seen that people, although experiencing repeated punishments, still commit sin again and again. So they do karma, they do bad karma, and they do the atonement. But the desire to sin does not go away. They still commit sin again and again. So then Parikshit Maharaj, he says, what is the value of such atonement? Why are you telling me this, Sukadev Goswami? And he compares it to an elephant who puts dirt on himself after carefully having his bath. So we've seen that, right? Elephant has a nice bath and it comes out, and then with his trunk, he'll take in a whole lot of dust and cover himself again. What was the point of the bath? So, very nice. Then Sukadeva Goswami accepts Parikshit Maharaj's response, stating that the karma kandik atonement cannot destroy sin. Why? Because it can't remove the ignorance, which is the root cause of the sin. The ignorance remains. That hasn't been cured. So then Sukadev Goswami, he describes the path of Gyan, knowledge, which leads one to liberation. So again, although Parikshit Maharaj didn't say anything, the acharyas say that He showed his disdain. He said, no, he just disapproved without saying anything. No, that's not the right answer either. So Parikshit Maharaj was very knowledgeable. So then Sukadeva Goswami explains, okay, you're right. The results of Gyan are not effective either to destroy the root of sin. And he gives a couple of examples. They compare to burning of dry leaves while leaving the roots beneath to grow at the first opportunity. So even like dry leaves, if they can be burnt, but the roots are still there, so that tree can still rise. So in the same way, the Gyan can destroy the karmic reaction, but the desire to sin is still there. That hasn't gone. So even after practicing Gyan, sin may reappear. This is the point. So then, Sukadeva Goswami explains, only pure unalloyed bhakti, devotional service to Lord Krishna, can uproot the weeds of sin with no possibility that they will revive. So this is the point. Bhakti is the only thing that can actually uproot the desire to sin. And again, he gives example. Just like the mere manifestation of the sun's rays. So that was the verse that we spoke. The first sun's rays, as soon as the first sun's rays comes, all the fog goes away. So even a slight appearance of bhakti can destroy the fog of one's sinful life. So this is the power of bhakti. Even a little bit of bhakti can completely finish any desire to sin. One must follow the path of pure devotees, which is fearless and authorized by the scriptures. Those who have once surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord can never see Yamraj, even in dreams. So then people may not believe that. And perhaps Parikshit Maharaj showed some surprise at this as well, even once. Sukadeva Goswami went a little further. He said, just chant the name of the Lord once and you have nothing to fear. That's hard to believe, right? So then this pastime of Ajamil is narrated by Sukadeva to substantiate this claim. In Kanya Kubja, a Brahmin named Ajamil lost his good conduct and married a prostitute, engaging in sinful activities to support her. So he was, in the beginning of his life, a very good Brahmin. He was trained by his mother and father. He was well behaved. He had good character. One day he went to the forest, and in the forest he happened to see a man and a woman together. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 262, Dhyayato visaya pumsaha sangaste supajayate sangat sanjayate kamat kamat krodha pajayate. While contemplating on the senses, one becomes attached to them. So he started contemplating. He tried to control himself. He tried to stop thinking about what happened between the man and the woman, but he could not control his mind. So he fell. He hired the prostitute as a maidservant in his home and then eventually married her. He left the house, he left the family, he left his wife. He was a beautiful wife. He took all the money. He left his aged parents. He was the only child. Everything was just destroyed. And he was about 18. So for the rest of his life, up to the age of 80, was it 80?
88.
88, but 88, and then did he have another 12 years after that? Oh, okay. For 70 years, he was with the prostitute. They had 10 children. Even at the age of 88, that's right, he had a 5-year-old son. So you can imagine. Now it said, I haven't read this in the scripture, but I heard it in a class from a devotee that because of his practice of Brahminical culture in his early years, he was very fortunate. He had some agyat sukriti from that, where a devotee, a sage, came to him later on in his life, just before the birth of his youngest son, and the sage told him, name him Narayan. And for whatever reason, he named the son Narayan. And he was very attached to that boy. Everybody else had dumped him. Everybody else, he was old man. Nobody cared for him. His wife had left. His older children had gone. Nobody cared for him. But this little boy was always around. So he would always be thinking about this little boy. Oh yeah, sorry, this is what happened. Due to Ajamil's sins, so he was on his deathbed, about to die, and his health was really bad. 3 fearsome Yamadutas came to take him to hell. As the Yamadutas were snatching the soul from the core of his heart. So this is where that proof is. Where is the soul situated? In the region of the heart, within the heart. So they were taking the soul from the core of his heart. Bewildered Ajamil called out the name of Narayan, his son, who was playing nearby, with tears in his eyes. Having heard the holy name of their master chanted from the mouth of the dying Ajamil, the order carriers of Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, immediately arrived, stopping the Yamadutas. Ajamil had certainly chanted the holy name of Narayan without offense due to his past good fortune. So this is the idea. The 3 Yamadutas had come. He was out of it, just scared stiff, shouting out, Narayan. And at that time, the 4 carriers, order carriers, there's 3 there, but actually there's 3 there as well. But he said there were 4 who came. 4 came to stop the Yamadutas snatching the soul. You can see these guys look pretty fierce. And there are many pastimes experienced by people about seeing such characters near the time of their death. I think if you Google it, you probably find it. The Yamadutas were surprised at the appearance of the Vishnu Dutas and challenged their audacity to obstruct the authority of Yamraj, because they had been ordered by Yamraj, fetch Ajamil. They inquired about the identity of the Vishnu Dutas. Who are you? And why are you stopping us from taking Ajamil? They especially looked at the Vishnu Dutas and they were really impressed. Their eyes were just like petals of a lotus flower. They were dressed in yellow silken garments, decorated with garlands of lotuses and wearing very attractive helmets, earrings on ears, fresh and youthful. 4 long arms are decorated with bow and quivers of arrows, with swords, club, concho, discs, lotus flower. Their effulgence had dissipated the darkness of the place with extraordinary illumination. So this is what the Vishnu Dutas look like. Ah, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, finally. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, so then the Vishnu Dutas, they simply smiled. They didn't answer the question. Why did they smile? Well, in many ways, the Yamadutas look like ghosts. They looked very inferior. So the Vishnu Dutas smiled because they knew the Yamadutas had no chance against the Vishnu Dutas. There could be no argument. And also they were surprised that the Yamadutas didn't know the principles of religion. So they asked in turn the servants of Yamraj to explain a few things. What is the meaning of religious principles? What are the symptoms of a religion? So they're testing them. What do you understand? Who are you? The process of punishing others, the actual candidates for punishment. Are all karmis engaged in fruitive activities punishable, or only some of them? And the Yamadutas, they answered the questions to the best of their ability. Religion is given in the Vedas, which are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. He is the cause and controller of this cosmic manifestation. They had some knowledge. The witnesses of activities of all beings are. So we might think sometimes, oh yeah, we're doing some crazy activity. Nobody's seeing us. But actually, there are witnesses who are observing what's happening. The sun, the fire, the sky, the air, demigods, the moon, evening, day and night. We can't escape. The directions, water, land, and of course, the one who's always with us, the Paramatma. So these witnesses confirm who must be punished for sinful activities. So this is like the process of punishing others, or the actual candidates for punishment. They confirm who are the candidates. The soul is sinless, but when it comes within the control of the three modes of material nature in this world, it becomes contaminated. And according to one's activities, one does good activities, one enjoys. One does adharma, one suffers. And Yamraj, he follows the super soul. And in cooperation with the super soul, he executes either the rewards or the punishments for the living entities. So Yamadutas had some knowledge. Due to identification with the body and loss of memory at birth, a person is not aware of his past lives. The soul, in cooperation with the mind and 15 senses, enjoys the world alone. Right? This is a very quick recap. These 15 senses. Anybody remember what they are?
Earth, water, fire.
These are the gross. Yeah, these are the gross elements, not the 15 senses.
That means they are the eyes, nose, ears, and tongue and touch, and then these are the object of the senses. And the senses, here you go, you're putting everything there.
Yeah,
I'm not too quick, right?
No, that's okay. That's good. It's good. You had it right. That's why I carried on. So absolutely, 5 objects of the senses. What we get attracted to: the form, the sound, the smell, taste, and touch. And then what we see those, how they manifest through the senses. We see with our eyes the form. We hear sounds. We smell with our nose. We taste with our tongue. We touch with our skin. And then there's the 5 working senses: hands, legs, voice, and the genitals, anus. So these are the 15 senses plus the mind. So the other things are not included at this stage, but this is just for completeness. So the living entity traps himself in a network of his own fruitive activities and then can find no way to release himself. Thus forced to act, he is always bewildered, and repeatedly he dies. Just like a silkworm trapped in a cocoon. So the silkworm is trying to get out, but it's trapped. So we are similarly trapped in this world. We know this world is inherently a problem because there's something called death, but we just can't get out of it. The fruitive activities a living being performs are the root cause for his obtaining different bodies. And he obtains joy as a demigod, lamentation as a human. That's what we do. We're always in the mood of lamentation. We may have everything, but something is missing, and we are just focusing on that missing thing. Lamentation. And animals are always fearful. However, if he associates with the Lord or his devotees, he can overcome this position. And then they describe about Ajamil. In the beginning of his life, Ajamil was a Brahmin of high character. Once he saw a low-class man enjoying with a prostitute. Thus the dormant, lusty desires in his heart awakened. He lost control of his mind, even though he tried to control it. Losing his good sense, he gave up all his Brahminical activities to satisfy the prostitute while engaging in sinful activities to maintain the prostitute's family. He passed a long time transgressing the scriptures, acting irresponsibly and condemned for his behavior, leading a sinful life and being impure. Since he did not undergo atonement, the Yamadutas say they have come to take him for punishment to Yamraj. So they've put their case forward, and it's a very strong case. He has to be punished. He hasn't atoned for his sins. So that's where we finish. This is the end of the first chapter. Any questions or any comments?
Prabhuji,
Yes, Naniman.
yes, Ajamil, yes, even though he's doing so much bad activities in his youth or whatever age he was, but still he must have been a very pious person before, because just saying the name of the Narayan, the Vishnu Dutta came to save him. So he must have been like a, not exalted, but like a devotee in his, when he was young or when he was with his wife and living a family life.
Indeed, that's what saved him. That's what saved
him. Yeah. Now coming to that, I don't think this is possible in this age of the Kali, because people are telling the names of the Krishna and chanting and hearing and saying and giving names to their children about Narayan's names. But because of so much sins that we are committing, it's probably not possible in this day and age that we will be saved, unless we take to bhakti and surrender to Krishna.
It's a good question. Good point. The reason Ajamil named his son the way he did name his son, the last one, was because of his early life activities. Because that sage came to him and said to him, you should name your son Narayan. Now, if he had not named that son Narayan, the Yamadutas would have had every right to take him away. So it wasn't necessarily because of his young, when he was young, that he was performing bhakti. He was into Brahminical, which is fine, but it's not quite bhakti. Brahminical activities can be karma kand, or can be jnana yoga. However, what happened was he had this incredible fortune that sage came to him and said to him that you should call your son Narayan. So now, this sinful man, who was very old, everybody had left him. So constantly he was just calling out his son's name, Narayan, 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 Narayan. And in that way, slowly, he was atoning for his sins. However, what really did it, and we'll see that next tomorrow, what really did it was when he's on his deathbed, when he was completely desperate, completely unable to do anything. At that time, he chanted again the son of his son's name, Narayan, but the way it was chanted was completely offenseless. That's the point. Offenseless. It was nama bhas. It wasn't nama prem. It wasn't prema shuddha bhakti. It was just nama bhas. It was just a shadow of the name, but it was enough. That shadow of the name was enough. So that's what saved him. That shadow, namabhas. He didn't chant with offense. So you're right. If we chant, but if we're chanting offensively, we're not going to make much success. But if we chant even once inoffensively with full consciousness, then we are on the right path. We're on the right path.
Hare Krishna.
Mm.
Yeah,
Just
maybe.
one second. Naniben, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes. So he remembered, I mean, as you say in Gita, that if you remember Krishna in the end, then he will come to deliver you, isn't it? So I think that is some significant here.
Yes. Yes, for sure. That's exactly the point.
Mm.
That's exactly
That's
the
what he
point.
Yes,
remembers
okay.
at the time of death.
Yes. Very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though it's chanting with his son, they still, because
Yes.
he's chanting mercilessly, really, with fear as well.
Mm.
And
I
that
think
is,
there's a name.
that's what they took it as. He's calling out
Yes.
Lord's name.
I think there's a name given to this type of chanting with a different meaning, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I've forgotten in this same chapter.
Is it? Is that not
Yeah.
Namabhas? No? That's something else.
No.
Okay.
There's something else. I've highlighted it, but
Okay. We
okay.
can come to it tomorrow.
Yes, definitely. I will look into it.
Very good.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, Naniben. Yes, Indulekamaji.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So, because of his previous pious life, maybe while chanting, while calling the name of his son, he revived the dormant love of the Lord. Because there was one story, one rich, he was merchant or he was a businessman. So he went to listen to some kathas, and he said, "Okay, the pujari is saying that at the time of death, if you remember Krishna, then you will go to his abode." So this man think, "Okay, all my life I will just work, I will earn money and be prosperous in my life, and at the end, no," he said, "I will call all my sons." He had 4 sons, so he changed their name. He called them by Narayan and so forth, all the name of the Lord. And he said, at time of death, I will call them just like Ajabil, I will be liberated. So what happens when he was on deathbed? He started calling one by one. All 4 sons came. And he said, he looked at them and he said, all 4 of you are there.
Who's
So
in the shop?
And then he left his body. So where did he go? He could not
In the
achieve
shop.
the Lord.
He
Yes.
became a snake.
Oh, was it a snake?
Yeah, he became a snake in his next life.
Yes.
Looking after the house.
You get entangled again in the material world. But this is not because you just call your son that name. You have to have the practice of
Yes.
calling the Lord from before, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Whether he had developed love for God, I doubt it, because he was witnessing the conversation between Yamdut and Vishnudut. And then he realized that,
realized.
whoa, I've really made a mess
Of my life.
And then after that, he had another 12. He had the second chance, 12 more years. And then he gave up everything, went to Haridwar. And
That's what he said, that it's never lost. Whatever you are earning now, the pious credit you're earning, it's never lost. Yeah.
Well, no, pious credits can be lost. It's the bhakti. It's the
bhakti,
devotion.
yes.
Devotion. Yeah, pious
Yeah.
credits come and go, right? But the devotion never gets lost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Now, Pitambar has got some nice points. Would atonement mean Hare Krishna? Would atonement mean Hare Krishna? Yes, yes. But we don't chant to atone, right? The mood of our chanting is not, I've sinned, so please let me atone for that.
Let me chant some more.
to counteract the sin. Our chanting, if we committed sin, then our prayer to Krishna is, okay, if I have to suffer, you just let me not forget you. I know I have to suffer, let me not forget you. But when we chant, it is not to atone, it is to develop pure love of God, to hear the name. So then he's also, plus refrain from doing again as this would be classed as offense. Yes. Yes,
Because
that's
that's one of the
right.
offenses of the holy name.
Sitting on the, chanting on the strength of the
holy name.
holy names of the Lord. Yeah, yeah. Good point. Oh, Ajamil appears 12 times in the Guru Granth Sahib. Acha. Okay, this same story, huh? Interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Pitamba.
Kamakshi.
Yes, Kamakshi.
Very well. You start laughing when I question, don't you?
No.
Just wanted to clarify in my head. The sage came at the right time for
Ajamil.
to advise him to have his son named Narayan. I mean, he had 10 sons, so it just shows if Krishna wants to help you, somehow he'll be there at the right time.
Yeah. I want to find a scriptural reference for that sage. I haven't found one yet, but I did hear that in not just one class, a few classes. That's why I mentioned it.
I heard that as well, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, you're right,
So-
Kamakshi, because he was a good Brahmanical boy up to the age of 18. He was perfectly well behaved. But it also shows that one can have that training, but Maya is so strong. Just one of the senses can just take the person away, even of a controlled person, Maya is so strong. You shouldn't think Maya is not strong. Maya is very strong.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get in my head that he did all the abominable acts, having 10 children with a prostitute, but still he had done whatever devotional service in his young life that has saved him. So the name Narayan came about by the sage and he accepted, and then obviously he got the mukti from, and there Vishwaduta came to take him.
Whether
That's what my understanding is.
whether he did devotional service when he was
You're
young,
right?
it's not clear whether he did devotional. He was born in a Brahminical family, so the culture was strong within his consciousness. So that gave him pious credits, and then on the strength of that pious credit, he's got this incredible
That association.
boon.
It's that one association.
One association came to him, the devotee. And as you said, if Krishna wants to protect you, he'll find a way.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that point.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Solinda.
Dandavat Prabhu, Nitai Gaur Prabhu.
Hari Bo.
Yeah, I would like to share a statement by Ajamil, which is mentioned in Prapana Jivamritam in the chapter Surrender and Humility. So
Okay.
as follows. Mangalamaya Bhagavan Nama Bhashe Papinam Atmadhikaraha Kvachaham Kitava Papo Brahmagno Nirapatrapaha Kwacha Narayaneti Etat Bhagavan Nama Mangalam. The sinful revile themselves when they are exposed to a mere facsimile of the all-auspicious holy name of the Lord, Nama Bhash. So the statement is as follows. Who am I, a cheater, a sinner, a defiler of my Brahminical status? Shameless wretch, what is my position in comparison to this holy name of the Lord, Narayan, the ultimate of all auspiciousness? So this is a statement by Ajamil in Surrender in Humility.
Yes, and he makes a similar statement in the next chapter, that I just deserve punishment, my Lord, nothing else.
Yeah, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita there is an example, because this topic comes under the glories of chanting the holy name. Even in the form of Namabhash. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita there is Haridas Thakur. He explains that the glories of the holy name. He narrates a story that there was a Muslim and he was attacked by a hawk, and by the time he was dying, because Muslims considers hog as haram, so he just expressed haram when he was dying.
Yes,
In
yes.
this way, he pronounced the name of the Lord, Hey Ram, like that. So he was liberated. He got some spiritual benefit.
Yes, it's extraordinary. That pastime, we will look at that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when we get there in about a few months' time, if we get there. Very good point. Thank you so much for sharing that. Pitamba. Are you there, Pitamba? Anyway, any other questions, any other points?
Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Oh, good, Hare Krishna. So you can, your instructions are there anyway, so go for it. Anything else you want to add? Go ahead.
No, nothing. I did relate the story a couple of days ago, Friday, about the warning of Yamadut in the life of one of the devotees called Rangaji, when he came to warn him in his dream and all that. So anyway, we can relate to that story. Because sometimes when you listen to the storyline, you think, I don't believe this sort of, how do we Yamadus? They don't exist. How, they don't, it doesn't sound real, And one starts to lose faith in this and thinking this is all kind of BS. And interesting to watch the film of that ghost as well, in 1970, something like that. Anyway, I'll go through the instructions because it's just as a physician, and you've repeated this, so I took this as an instruction rather, because we feel that, there's a time that we need to feel, should we atone for this? Just like, there's a general conception that, within certain religions, like even Christians, I can go to confession on Sunday and then rest of the week I can do all the nonsense. Go back on Sunday and then I'll be pardoned and all that. So, and this can go on, like an elephant, having a bath. And then, so chapter 1, just as a physician who knows how to diagnose a disease and should prescribe the medicine accordingly. And if the disease is very serious, the medicine needs to be strong. Just now, the coronavirus is so severe, they're trying to find out the right medicine for it. The right anti-viral or whatever, but it's so it's recommended that we should be prepared to atone according to the gravity of one's sinful acts, and properly by consulting the established injunction of the Shastras and act accordingly. So it's not whimsically that I'll just go on Sunday and just atone, I'll took the confession and that's it, that'll do it. But there are, Shastras recommend certain things to be done. Even governments, Prabhupada mentions that, if there are those who murder, those who kill, that if they need to be hanged, they need to be hanged, because if they don't, then perpetually they commit more and more sin, and it becomes more heavier and heavier karma. And more sinful. So even government becomes a party within this. So there are laws and all that to deal with people who kill, and they have to be punished accordingly. So these are injunctions, not that, he should be pardoned, and you should let him go. But so as per text 18, though, in this chapter, my dear king, as the pot contains liquor, cannot be purified even if it's washed in the water in many rivers, non-devotees cannot be purified by process of atonement even if they perform them very well. So these atonement processes, can work sometimes and may not. One may think that, I've paid for my sinful acts and I've done my time, I'm out now, I can do what I want. It doesn't work, So in the laws of nature and in Krishna's laws, one doesn't just get away like that. But this unfolds in the pastimes of Ajamil. So as we are seeing this story of Ajamil, we are seeing how this atonement process can work to a certain extent, but for non-devotees. But we are on the path of bhakti. Hopefully we chant the holy names, we purify and perfect our position by the mercy of Guru. We have to come to the point, even I was making a point that even Arjun had to come to a point where he had to surrender to some higher authority, and that was like Krishna himself. So in Maharaj Parikshit also had to come to a point where he had to surrender, and Shukdev Goswami then guides him through the path. Eventually, so we are on that journey, witnessing how Maharaj Parikshit gets liberated, or rather, taken to a point where he's at Krishna's lotus feet. And then, so it's just beyond that. We have to ask for the mercy of Radharani's Sakhis and Krishna's mercy. So we are blessed in some ways.
Yeah.
But let's carry on the journey. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Haribol. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Very good. Okay, so anything else? Pitamba, are you there? Can we hear you? No. So anybody else? Any comments or questions? Otherwise, we can go to the Nishinga Kavach. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. 6th canto, 1st chapter ki jai.
Oh, just coming on.
Okay. Just want to hear what he's going to say. Be interesting.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, good. So the scriptures in 6 scriptures have this, huh?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because it just happened that today I was just going through the Guru Granth Sahib, and I was looking for, okay, let's see how many times Prahlad Maharaj appears. He appears about 71 times. Dhruv Maharaj appears about 31. And then I started working on Ajmal and Bhutana and some other, personalities. And it was really interesting, because I think maybe because yesterday we were talking about, today we're going to discuss Ajmal. So I thought, let me have a quick look, because I knew his story was definitely there. And basically the Shabad, which is the Sikh version of Bhajan, basically says Yamal Jai Garbaga, which basically means the Yamals had come, but they ran back home. They ran back home when the Lord's devotees appeared to save Ajmal. So it appears many times across different shabds, and so also Kanka, the prostitute. That was the next example I was going to start searching today as well, to see how many times does her story appear. But Prahlad Maharaj definitely appears 71 times, and that is really interesting.
Very good. Similar pastime, huh?
Same pastime. He was on his deathbed and he said Narayan.
Okay, good. Okay, very good.
I mean, to be honest, when I was looking through the whole Guru Granth Sahib today, I thought might as well do a little bit of extra research. I was totally shocked at the amount of Vaishnavism in Guru Granth Sahib. I would say it's more of a Vedanta, Vedic Vaishnav faith rather than any other Abrahamic or Buddhist or even Jainism, because of these references. There's even references to Vyas and Sukadev Goswami, would you believe?
Interesting.
He's called Sukha. I mean, it doesn't go into too much depth, but it just kind of, talks about, oh, by the way, remember that these personalities, go and read what they have said. We are saying the same thing, kind of thing. That's the kind of flavor and the attitude of devotion. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
I just share one little episode of Prahlad Maharaj's story. I went to a Gurudwara, somebody's birthday, little boy.
Yes, go ahead, Maj.
Sorry, I thought somebody's singing already, so I didn't want to do this.
No,
Yeah, so I went to a party, and I think Gurudwara, this song was playing. It was about Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj, and I was so surprised that, as Pitamba says, that it's all in Guru Granth Sahib. And then I had a conversation with somebody regarding it. And then all the stories we do from Bhagavatam is all in Guru Granth Sahib. So it's hand in hand. It's just surprising that we don't know so much about what is in Guru Granth Sahib. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you very much.